Recently, we have come across a lot of speeches by ministers like PM Modi and the Minister of External Affairs, Mr. Jaishankar, where they've been speaking about the global south.
वॉइस ऑफ ग्लोबल साउथ 21वीं सदी की बदलती हुई दुनिया का सबसे अनूठा मंच है।
What is the global south? Well, there is a notional line that divides the world into two halves. The two worlds formed due to this are called the global north and the global south. The global south refers to countries often characterized as developing, less developed or underdeveloped, primarily located in Africa, Asia and Latin America. Most of these countries, where 88% of the world population lives, experienced colonial rule and historically lacked in achieving substantial levels of industrialization. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, Global South countries typically exhibit lower levels of development, higher income inequality, rapid population growth, agrarian dominant economies, lower quality of life, shorter life expectancy, and significant external dependence. The term Global South thus denotes political, geopolitical, and economic similarities between these nations. Hence, it should not be conflated with strict geographical connotations. For instance, most Asian countries fall under the Global South. Yet, countries such as Israel, South Korea, and Japan are considered part of the Global North because of their high levels of development. These nations typically experience higher levels of poverty, income inequality, and challenging living conditions compared to the wealthier nations of the Global North. The Global North is richer nations that are located mostly in North America and Europe, with some additions in Oceania and elsewhere. Just to put things in perspective, Global North and South are demarcations that have been made on the basis of income distribution and income levels. So the Global North is basically rich countries, and the Global South consists of developing, or what we popularly call a third world nation. But before going deeper and doing a deeper analysis of the Global North and the Global South, let us first try to understand the history behind the establishment of these two regions and why are we talking about the Global North and the Global South. Carl Oglesby, an American political activist, coined the term Global South way back in 1969. He used the term to describe countries suffering from political and economic exploitation by developed nations of the Global North. Initially, the term Global South did not really gain much attention as the world was classified into First World, which is capitalist bloc, Second World, socialist bloc, and the Third World, non-aligned countries. But with time, Third World became increasingly associated with negative connotations of economic powerlessness, chronic poverty, and political instability. Previously, developing nations were commonly referred to as the Third World, a term coined by Alfred Sauvy in 1952. However, this term became associated with poverty, instability, and negative stereotypes propagated by the Western media. As a result, the term Global South emerged as a more neutral alternative. What led to the emergence of Global North and Global South? First was the non-feasibility of earlier classification. In the post-Cold War world, the First World, Third World classification was no longer feasible because when the communist USSR disintegrated in 1991, most countries had no choice but to ally at some level with the capitalist US, the only remaining global superpower. The East-West binary was also seen as often perpetuating stereotypical thinking about African and Asian countries. Categorizing incredibly diverse countries into a monolith was felt to be too simplistic. Second was the commonalities in Global South countries. Most of the Global South countries share a history of colonization. The region has mostly remained underrepresented in international forums such as their exclusion from the permanent membership of the UNS. This exclusion is seen as something that contributes towards the slower growth of the Global South. Now that we have a fair understanding of the Global North and South and why did it come to be, there is definitely merit in understanding what is currently happening and what is the current status quo. What is the significance of Global South today? The shifting economic and political power. The Global South has experienced a significant shift in wealth and political visibility in recent decades. The World Bank has acknowledged a shift in wealth from the North Atlantic to the Asia-Pacific region, challenging conventional notions of economic power distribution. Projections indicate that by 2030, 3 of the 4 largest economies will belong to the Global South countries, with, of course, China and India leading the way. The combined GDP of the BRICS nations, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, already surpasses that of the G7 nations. Moreover, political actors from the global south, such as China, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil, are increasingly playing influential roles in global affairs. Impact on geopolitics. The growing economic and political power of the global south has important implications for global geopolitics. Asian nations are predicted to play a significant role in what experts call the Asian century. Additionally, there's talk of a post-Western world as the influence of the global south challenges the historical dominance of the global north. These shifts signify the increasing assertiveness and influence of the global south on the world stage. Now that we've understood the relevance of the global south, there are still some challenges along the way. What are these? Let's find out. First, inadequate access to resources. The global north-south divergence has been historically characterized by major gaps in the access to resources required for crucial development projects. Second, impact of international wars. The Russia-Ukraine war severely affected the least developed countries, aggravating the concerns related to food, energy, and finance, thereby threatening the development prospects of these LDCs. Third, foreign policy tensions. China is increasingly making inroads in the global south through the Belt and Road Initiative for developing infrastructure. However, it is still questionable whether BRI will be a win-win situation for both parties, or will it focus only and only on China's profit. The world is now considered to be multipolar by many, but still, it is the US alone which dominates international affairs. The US possesses the largest economy in the world, with substantial influence over global financial markets. The US dollar remains the dominant currency for international trade and is used as a reserve currency by many countries. Fourth, ecological impact. Despite global north countries' higher contribution towards global emissions, they are neglecting to pay for funding green energy, for which the ultimate sufferers are the least emitters, the lesser developed countries. India as the voice of the global south. India, with its history of leading in the non-aligned movement and G77 through the Cold War, has taken a considerable lead in assuming a leadership role and representing the collective interests of the global south countries. This was demonstrated during India's presidency of the G20 in 2023. Following the assumption of the G20 presidency on December 1, 2022, India convened a landmark virtual Global South Summit themed Unity of Voice, Unity of Purpose in January 2023. With leaders and ministers from 125 countries of the Global South in attendance, Prime Minister Narendra Modi stressed the need for collective action to reshape the emerging global order. He highlighted that the Global South holds the largest stakes in the future, as 3/4 of the world population lives in our countries. However, alongside India, China too has staked claims to lead the Global South consensus on major international issues. These two countries have consistently advocated for a renegotiation of the global economic and political order. Nevertheless, Beijing has attracted criticism for pursuing predatory economical policies, especially under its Belt and Road Initiative, adding to the economic distress of dozens of countries across the Global South. While India, on the other hand, has accrued significant diplomatic capital to buttress its claims of leadership for the Global South through its persistent calls for collective action and development. For instance, during the G20 summit in Delhi in September 23, India succeeded in its efforts to induct the African Union as a permanent member of the major economic bloc. The expansion, the first time since the formation of G20 in 1999, allows the African countries to voice their economic concerns directly to the world's most influential countries. Secondly, let's not forget that during COVID-19, India distributed around 163 million doses across 96 countries under the Vaccine Maitri humanitarian drive between January 2021 and February 2022. This symbolizes India's commitment to go beyond rhetoric, to take tangible actions for the collective welfare of the Global South. The Digital India initiative has set an example for many developing countries. India has shared its digital innovations such as the Aadhaar system and UPI with many other countries. Through collaborations in IT and space technology, India has supported several countries in improving their technological infrastructure. In conclusion, the recent resurgence of the Global South reflects the evolving geopolitical landscape and the growing influence of developing nations in global affairs. India's leadership exemplifies this transition through its championing of the interests of the Global South and advocating for a recalibration of the global economic and politics order. This is Akshay. See you in the next one with another video.